she posted. He monitors my phone and breaks my things, with fake Bruise photos to 50,000 women. So I documented every lie and hired a lawyer. Now she's admitted everything was false and owes me $30,000. Hey, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. 2 years ago, I was a normal guy in what I thought was a normal relationship. Today, I'm sitting in my new apartment, looking at court documents that officially clear my name from one of the most devastating lies someone can tell about another person. This is the story of how my ex-girlfriend Sarah tried to destroy my life with false abuse allegations, and how I fought back with nothing but truth and patience. It started on a Tuesday morning in March. I was at my desk, debugging code like any other day, when my manager Lisa knocked on my cubicle wall. "David, can we talk privately?" Her tone made my stomach drop. I followed her to the conference room, where she closed the door and pulled out her phone. "I need to show you something," she said, her voice careful and measured. "Someone sent this to HR." She turned her phone toward me, and I felt the world tilt. It was a Facebook post from Sarah, my girlfriend of 8 months. The post had a photo of what looked like a bruised arm, definitely not Sarah's. She had a small scar on her wrist that wasn't visible in the image, and a long caption that started with, "When you're in an abusive relationship, you learn to hide the evidence." I stared at the screen, reading words that described a monster. According to the post, I was controlling, emotionally abusive, and physically violent. She described incidents that never happened, conversations that never occurred, and a version of me that I didn't recognize. "This isn't true," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Lisa nodded slowly. "I know you, David. This doesn't sound like you at all. But HR needs to address it since it's public and mentions your workplace." The post had over 200 likes and dozens of comments from women offering support and sharing their own stories. In the comments, Sarah had added more details about my supposed abuse, including claims that I monitored her phone, controlled her money, and isolated her from friends. None of it was true. Not a single word. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. Sarah was supposed to be at work. She did part-time graphic design for a local marketing firm. I called her. "Hey babe," she answered, her voice bright and normal. "Sarah, we need to talk." I saw the Facebook post. There was a pause. "Oh, that? Sarah, you accused me of abuse. You posted lies about me online." "They're not lies, David. You just don't see how you affect people." I sat in my car outside our apartment building, gripping the steering wheel. "What are you talking about? I've never laid a hand on you. I've never controlled your money or your phone. It's not just about hitting, David. Emotional abuse is real. You make me feel small." "When? How? Give me one example." "You're doing it right now, interrogating me, making me defend myself." "This is exactly what I'm talking about." I felt like I was losing my mind. "Sarah, you posted a photo of someone else's bruises and claimed I gave them to you. How's that not lying? You're being dramatic. It's just a stock photo to illustrate a point. A point about abuse that isn't happening? God, David, you're so obtuse. I shouldn't have to explain emotional abuse to you. The women in these groups understand what I'm going through." "What groups?" Another pause. "Support groups. Online communities for women dealing with difficult relationships." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the post, about my coworkers' reactions, about how this could affect my career and reputation. Sarah acted completely normal, watching Netflix and commenting on the show like nothing had happened. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I looked at Sarah's social media activity. What I found made me sick. She had been posting in multiple Facebook groups for abuse survivors, Reddit communities, women's support forums. For weeks, she had been sharing detailed stories about my supposed abuse, painting herself as a victim trapped in a dangerous relationship. The stories were elaborate and specific, but completely false. She described me throwing plates. I'm probably the least violent person I know, screaming at her. I rarely raise my voice, and threatening to leave her with nothing. She had her own job and bank account. In one post, she wrote, "He monitors everything I do. I can't even go out with friends without him interrogating me about where I've been." This was particularly absurd because I actively encouraged her to spend time with friends and rarely asked about her plans. Another post claimed, "He controls all the money and makes me ask permission to buy anything." The truth? We split expenses proportionally based on our incomes, and she had complete access to her own money. But the worst part was reading the responses. Dozens of women offering support, sharing their own stories, giving advice on how to escape. These were real victims of real abuse, and Sarah was exploiting their compassion for attention. I took screenshots of everything. That evening, I confronted Sarah again. She was in the kitchen, making dinner like nothing had happened. I found the other posts I said. She didn't look up from the stove. What posts? The Reddit posts. The other Facebook groups. All the lies you've been telling about me. She turned around, and for a moment, I saw something cold in her eyes. Then she smiled. You're stalking my social media now? That's pretty controlling behavior, David. I'm trying to understand why you're destroying my reputation with lies. They're not lies. You just don't want to face the truth about who you are. What truth? That I'm an abuser? Sarah, you know that's not true. Do I? You're confronting me aggressively right now. You're making me feel unsafe. I took a step back, realizing she was trying to create a scene she could later describe as threatening. I'm not being aggressive. I'm asking you to explain why you're posting false information about me online. See? You're calling me a liar. That's gaslighting, David. The conversation was surreal. She was accusing me of gaslighting while literally gaslighting me. Every reasonable question I asked was twisted into evidence of abuse. Every attempt to defend myself was labeled as controlling behavior. Sarah, I've never hurt you. I've never controlled you. I've never threatened you. These posts are damaging my reputation and my career. Maybe if you weren't so emotionally unavailable, I wouldn't need to seek support elsewhere. Seeking support is fine. Lying about abuse is not. You're making this about you when I'm the victim here. That was the moment I realized I was dealing with someone who had completely detached from reality or was so skilled at manipulation that she could lie without any apparent conscience. I walked away from the conversation and called my best friend Marcus. She's doing what? Marcus said after I explained the situation. Posting in abuse survivor groups, claiming I'm violent and controlling. Dude, that's insane. And illegal, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe. It's definitely defamation. You need to talk to a lawyer. I don't want to escalate this. Maybe she'll just stop. David, she's not going to stop. She's getting attention and sympathy. Why would she stop? Marcus was right. Over the next few days, Sarah continued posting. The stories became more elaborate, more detailed, more damaging. She claimed I had destroyed her belongings, false, threatened her pets, we didn't have pets, and made her afraid to leave the house. She went out constantly. Meanwhile, I was dealing with the fallout at work. Colleagues were treating me differently. I overheard whispered conversations that stopped when I approached. HR called me in for a wellness check to ensure I wasn't under stress that might affect my work performance. My reputation was being destroyed, one post at a time. That's when I decided to document everything systematically. Every post, every comment, every lie. I created a detailed timeline with screenshots, timestamps, and my own memories of what actually happened during the timeframe she described. The documentation revealed a pattern. Sarah's abuse stories always coincided with days when I was busy with work or spending time with friends. If I had a deadline and worked late, she'd post about me being emotionally unavailable. If I went out with Marcus, she'd claim I was isolating her from support. She was essentially punishing me for having a normal life outside our relationship. I also discovered something else. Sarah had done this before. Through mutual friends, I learned that her ex-boyfriend Jake had suddenly disappeared from their social circle about 2 years ago. When I reached out to him, he told me a familiar story. She posted all kinds of crazy stuff about me being controlling and abusive, Jake told me over the phone. I tried to defend myself, but it just made me look guilty. I eventually just moved across town and started over. Did you ever consider legal action? I thought about it, but I just wanted it to go away. I didn't want to deal with the drama. I understood his choice, but I couldn't make the same one. My career was at stake. My reputation was being destroyed, and worst of all, Sarah was trivializing real abuse by manufacturing fake stories. I called a lawyer. Jennifer Chin's office was on the 15th floor of a downtown building. She was a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in defamation and harassment cases. I brought a folder containing printouts of every post, comment, and screenshot I'd collected. She reviewed the documents with the methodical attention of someone who'd seen this before. This is a textbook defamation case, she said finally. False statements of fact, published to third parties, causing damage to your reputation. The key question is whether we can prove malicious intent. What do you mean? Did she know the statements were false when she made them? Or did she act with reckless disregard for the truth? I thought about Sarah's calm demeanor when confronted, her ability to twist every conversation, her elaborate stories that contradicted verifiable facts. She knew they were false. She admitted using a stock photo instead of her own bruises. She described events that happened when I wasn't even in town. Jennifer nodded. The pattern you've documented suggests systematic fabrication rather than misunderstanding or emotional exaggeration. That's important. What happens now? We send a cease and desist letter first. If she continues posting false information, we file a formal lawsuit. Given the nature of the allegations, we might also need to consider criminal charges for filing false reports. I don't want to destroy your life. I just want the truth to come out. David, she's already trying to destroy your life. This isn't about revenge. It's about accountability. That afternoon, Jennifer sent the cease and desist letter. It was a formal legal document demanding that Sarah immediately stop making false statements about me and remove all existing posts containing defamatory content. Sarah's response was swift and predictable. She posted in one of her support groups, "Now he's trying to silence me with legal threats." This is exactly what abusers do when their victims speak out. She had just provided evidence of malicious intent by continuing to defame me after being legally notified that her statements were false. Over the next few weeks, something interesting happened. Sarah's stories became increasingly elaborate and unbelievable. She claimed I had stalked her to a coffee shop on a day when I was in another city for work. I had timestamped photos and hotel receipts to prove it. She described a violent incident that supposedly happened in our kitchen on a day when our neighbor's security camera showed me leaving for work at 8 a.m. and returning at 7 p.m. The women in her support groups began asking questions. Some requested more details about specific incidents. Others pointed out inconsistencies in her timeline. A few asked why she didn't report the physical abuse to authorities. Sarah's responses became defensive and contradictory. She accused questioners of victim blaming and not understanding abuse dynamics. She claimed she couldn't provide more details because it was too traumatic to relive. But her most damaging mistake came when she got cocky. In a private message to her friend Lisa, who later shared it with me, Sarah wrote, "These women eat up sob stories. I post about David being mean to me and suddenly I'm drowning in sympathy and attention. It's actually kind of addictive." Lisa was horrified. She had been genuinely concerned about Sarah's safety and had offered real help and resources. Discovering that Sarah was manufacturing abuse stories for attention was a betrayal that cut deep. Lisa reached out to me with screenshots of their private conversations. In them, Sarah bragged about the support she was getting online, laughed about how gullible the women were, and even asked Lisa to corroborate false stories. "I feel so stupid," Lisa told me when we met for coffee. "I was ready to help her leave you, find her a safe place to stay, connect her with resources. And she was just lying about everything." Did she ever seem genuinely afraid of me? No. She talked about you normally most of the time. Sometimes she complained that you were boring or didn't give her enough attention, but she never acted like someone in an abusive relationship. Lisa became a key witness in my case. She provided screenshots of Sarah's private admissions and testified about Sarah's behavior in person versus online. Meanwhile, Jake, Sarah's ex, came forward with his own evidence. He had saved some of Sarah's posts about him and could demonstrate her pattern of making false abuse allegations against partners. The case was building itself. One evening in late April, Sarah tried to reconcile. She came home from work with flowers and Chinese takeout, acting like nothing had happened. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together," she said, smiling brightly. "Sarah, you know I can't just pretend this isn't happening." Her smile faltered. "Look, I know things have been tense lately. Maybe I got a little carried away with the online stuff." "A little carried away?" "You accused me of abuse in front of hundreds of people. I was venting. You know how women talk when they're frustrated. Women don't typically accuse their partners of domestic violence when they're frustrated." She sat down across from me, her expression shifting to something I'd learned to recognize as manipulation mode. "David, I'll delete the posts. We can just move on from this." "It's too late for that." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've already filed a defamation lawsuit." Her face went white. "You what?" "You received a cease and desist letter. Instead of stopping, you posted more lies. Now you're facing legal consequences. You can't be serious. You're going to sue me over some Facebook posts?" "I'm going to sue you for systematically destroying my reputation with false allegations of abuse." "David, This is insane. You're being vindictive. I'm being held accountable for your actions. There's a difference. This will ruin my reputation." The irony was staggering. She was worried about her reputation after spending months trying to destroy mine. "You should have thought about that before you decided to lie about me online." I wasn't lying. I was sharing my truth. Your truth included claiming I gave you bruises that came from a stock photo website. Your truth included describing incidents that happened when I was in another city. Your truth was completely fabricated. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment she realized her usual manipulation tactics wouldn't work. "Fine," she said, her voice turning cold. "But you're going to regret this. Do you know how this looks? A man suing a woman for talking about abuse? You're going to look like a monster. I'm going to look like someone who refuses to let lies destroy his life." She moved out that weekend. A few days later, Sarah's sister Emma called me. "David, what you're doing to Sarah is cruel," she said without preamble. "What I'm doing to Sarah? She made some mistakes online, but suing her? That's going too far." "Emma, she didn't make mistakes. She fabricated detailed stories about me being abusive. She posted fake photos of injuries. She's been lying to abuse survivors for months. She's learning from this. She's going to therapy. I'm glad she's getting help, but that doesn't erase the damage she's caused. You're destroying a young woman's future over some social media posts. She tried to destroy my future with false allegations of abuse. Actions have consequences. She's family, David. I'm asking you to drop this. And I'm asking you to consider what it would feel like if someone spent months telling the world you were an abuser when you'd never hurt anyone in your life." Emma didn't have an answer for that. Sarah's parents called next. Her mother left a voicemail. "David, we know Sarah can be dramatic, but she's been through so much. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive her?" Her father was more direct. "You're being petty. Real men don't sue women over hurt feelings." The pressure campaign continued for weeks. Mutual friends reached out, asking me to be the bigger person and let it go. Some people who had believed Sarah's stories treated me like a villain for pursuing legal action. But I also received unexpected support. Colleagues who had initially been cold toward me began reaching out after learning the truth. Women in Sarah's former support groups contacted me to apologize and offer to testify about her deceptive behavior. Most importantly, real abuse survivors reached out to thank me for holding Sarah accountable. They understood that her lies made it harder for genuine victims to be believed. The legal process moved slowly, but the truth was faster. Word spread through our social circles about the evidence I'd gathered. Screenshots of Sarah's private admissions circulated. Jake's story became known. Sarah's online support evaporated. The women's groups she had frequented began questioning her posts, and several banned her for spreading false information. Her elaborate stories were dissected and debunked. She tried to control the narrative by claiming I was orchestrating a harassment campaign against her, but the evidence spoke for itself. Her own words, her own admissions, her own contradictions. By summer, Sarah had become a cautionary tale in several online communities about the dangers of false allegations. Her attempts to garner sympathy were met with skepticism and fact-checking. She lost her part-time job when her employer discovered her public posts about domestic violence, which mentioned her workplace, were fabricated. Her reputation in our social circles was destroyed. Meanwhile, my life slowly returned to normal. Colleagues treated me with respect again. Friends apologized for believing the initial stories. My career recovered. But the most satisfying moment came when I realized I no longer thought about Sarah daily. The anger and confusion had faded, replaced by a sense of justice and closure. In October, nearly 8 months after Sarah's first post, we met for court-mandated mediation. She looked smaller somehow, deflated and tired. Gone was the confident manipulator who had tried to destroy my life. Her lawyer had advised her to settle. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she faced both civil and criminal liability. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry," she said, not meeting my eyes. "For what, specifically?" For the posts. For lying about you. Why did you do it?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I was angry. You weren't giving me what I needed emotionally. I felt ignored and unimportant. When I posted about relationship problems, I got so much attention and support. It felt good to be the center of concern. So you escalated to abuse allegations? I didn't think it would go this far. I thought you'd just pay more attention to me. You thought destroying my reputation would make me pay attention to you? I wasn't thinking clearly. I needed to feel important. At the cost of trivializing real abuse. I know that was wrong. I know I hurt people who were actually in danger. Do you understand that your lies could have destroyed my career, my relationships, my entire life? Yes. And you understand that what you did was criminal? Yes. Her lawyer handed over a formal retraction statement. In it, Sarah admitted that all her allegations against me were false, that she had never been abused or threatened, and that she had fabricated the stories for attention. She also agreed to financial compensation for the damage to my reputation and legal fees. But the most important part was her agreement to seek continued therapy and to publicly educate others about the harm caused by false allegations. I need you to understand something, I said as we prepared to leave. I'm not the monster you painted me as, and you're not the victim you pretended to be. What you did was a choice. You chose to lie, to manipulate, to hurt people who were trying to help you. I know. I hope you learn from this. I hope you find whatever it is you're actually looking for. But I also hope you understand that actions have consequences and some damage can't be undone. She nodded, tears in her eyes. For what it's worth, I added, I forgive you. But I'll never forget what you're capable of. The aftermath: it's been 2 years since Sarah's first post. The legal case is closed, the financial settlement completed, and my reputation fully restored. I've been promoted at work, rebuilt damaged friendships, and started dating someone wonderful who actually respects me. Sarah kept her word about the therapy and education. She's spoken at several online forums about the damage false allegations caused to real victims. She's also stayed out of my life completely. I learned a lot from this experience. I learned that manipulation can be subtle and devastating. I learned that truth requires patience and documentation. I learned that dignity in the face of lies is more powerful than anger. Most importantly, I learned that some people will try to destroy you not because you're bad, but because they're broken. The key is not letting their brokenness break you too. I don't think about Sarah much anymore. When I do, I feel mostly sadness for the real abuse victims she deceived, for the trust she destroyed, for the person she could have been if she'd chosen honesty over manipulation. But I also feel proud. Proud that I stood up for truth. Proud that I held someone accountable for their actions. Proud that I didn't let lies define me. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed by someone else's toxicity. Sometimes justice is just making sure the truth gets told. And sometimes, the most satisfying victory is realizing that the person who tried to ruin your life is now completely irrelevant to your happiness. I'm doing well. Really well. And that's the best response to false allegations I could have asked for. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.